There's a better way to a better day. We call it the Betterment Project. The journey of betterment begins with practical solutions to improve your quality of life. The future is bright when you decide to take small steps in the right direction. We will never reach perfection, but we can always obtain betterment.
Hey everybody, this is Lakin and I am here with Anne, and today we are going to talk on the topic of identity.
Finding your identity is ultimately about finding out what makes you you. It means understanding who you are and what makes you tick. You are not your parents, the place you were born, or what you do for a living, even though we tend to identify with these things. Being an authentic person means having values, interests, and passions that make you unique. What do you think, Lakin?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I think our search for identity starts out from childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Finding things that we like to do, trying to figure out who we are. And our family dynamic can shape, some of that.
Definitely, because they're our number one influence when we're little.
Right. And so I liked to sing when I was young. And my parents really encouraged it. I remember, my dad would get out his camcorder and record me sing, and one of those big, huge camcorders that
sits on your shoulder.
Sits on your shoulder. And he would let me perform. You know what I mean? Because he knew that was something that I liked, and my parents were very proud of my ability, and me being able to sing.
So they were fostering that.
Yeah, they did foster that. They would have me, they'd be like, Lakin, sing, at family functions or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of, and I enjoyed it when I was younger. Made me feel like I was the star,
When I was a kid, my parents, they put me in every single kind of extracurricular thing you could think of, trying to help me find my identity, I think. I took pottery classes when I was a little teeny kid.
Oh, wow.
Then I was in dance classes from the time I was very young. I did gymnastics. I did calligraphy class, all kinds of art classes.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a play at church one time. I was in the choir, the children's choir. They were just always putting me in different things. Of course, like swim team.
Mm-hmm.
And just
my parents did that too. They did that too, I think, now that you mentioned it, looking back. Like, I was in ballet. I was doing, different things, piano class.
Right, yeah, I did piano too.
But nothing, really stuck.
Right, I would do it and then I'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore,
Yeah, it was nothing that you were, passionate about.
Right, but I'm really glad my parents gave me the opportunity to explore things.
Mm-hmm.
And find out what I didn't like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I think as I started getting into my teenage years, this identity crisis started happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, because you get thrust into school and different environments and different cliques and things that are going on. And, I retreated there for a while into my music, writing music and just singing. But I didn't really, have an outlet for it.
Right.
I did end up joining a church when I was younger and leading worship for a very, very short time there. And everybody was just blown away by this gifting that they seen in me.
Mm-hmm.
But I had some traumatic things happen to me at that church and ultimately ended up having to leave.
That's too bad.
Yeah, so
'Cause that could have been a really good thing.
yeah, it could have.
But isn't it sort of like, you know, when God closes one door, it's because he's got another door open for you.
Yeah,
So maybe that just wasn't the thing for you.
right. Yeah. And like it did kind of, you know, I was like, okay, what do I do? What do you do with singing? You know what I mean? Like, you either become a star or you don't.
Right.
You
Pretty
know?
much.
And I was just, you know, I mean, when American Idol first started coming out, I was like, man, you know, I'd love to do that, but I didn't have the courage behind me at the time to be able to attempt to do something like
That
that.
kind of surprises me considering you had so much family support.
Oh, I know. My parents, they would have driven me across the country to go audition if I
So I
wanted
wonder where your confidence issue was coming from, you know?
to. Yeah, it was just, I don't know. Insecurity started creeping in.
Because you're like a teenager.
Yeah, just, no, I think normal teenage stuff.
Yeah.
But it took me down, you know, like a darker path, honestly, because I
Your
didn't.
lack of self-confidence.
Yeah, my fear kept me from doing what I loved and turned me in another direction of trying to find someone else or something else, you know, who I was.
Right. Like you're saying, you got involved with drugs eventually.
Yeah, eventually I got involved in drugs. I tried just hanging out with a bunch of different kinds of groups of people and never really felt like I fit in until I found the drug crowd, and the drug crowd is where everyone's accepted, you know.
Right.
Whoever wants to do drugs is welcome. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And not that it was a good thing, it obviously destroyed my life and just led me down a horrible, horrible dark path. But I'm, you know, in my 30s now and still dealing with trying to figure out who I am. You know, and I think it's just a lifelong journey. I don't think it's just like, you know, we know exactly who we are. I think we just we continuously learn who we are, I think, up until the day we die.
Right.
You know, we learn new things about ourselves.
But the thing that I think is interesting is you were talking about how when the fear got you, it's like you let the fear take hold, and that stole you away from what your passion was and what your identity was forming up to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me think of that American Indian story about the two dogs fighting in my heart. One is a very good dog, a beautiful dog, and is always watching out for my best interest. The other is a very bad dog who is always trying to destroy the things I want to build up. And that dog gives me a lot of trouble because they're always quarreling and fighting each other. And you want to know which one wins? The American Indian says, whichever one I give into. So, like, you gave into the fear. It's like,
wow,
whichever
that's
one
good.
you feed, you know, you either feed the fear or the hope and the love. And unfortunately, you fed the fear and went down the path of drugs and, you know, whatever you could do to squelch that fear.
Yeah. Yeah, because drugs and drinking, I mean, that gave me confidence. It gave me confidence, a false sense of confidence, but it gave me a confidence in myself that I was lacking, you know, before. So that totally makes sense. And that's actually biblical, too.
Right.
You know, whatever we feed becomes bigger.
Right.
You know, whether it's fear or whether it's hope.
It's just sad when you think about it that we do let fear take over so much of our lives, you know, and it totally changes the course of our life.
Yeah.
Because if you had not let that fear take hold, I wonder what could have happened. You know, what could have become of your singing talents and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also believe everything happens for a reason, and that, that's not your only.
No, my
Right.
life don't end there.
No.
Yeah, for sure. It does, and we can look back and be sad and mourn, those things. And I do mourn. I do mourn that because I'm like, man, where would I be right now?
But if you think about it, what if you had gone on American Idol? What if you had won the whole competition? What if you had become like Kelly Clarkson or, some huge star? And then you had all kinds of money, but you do have the disease of addiction within you.
Right.
And had you gotten onto drugs
Right.
with all that money,
Yes.
that could have ended your life. You know?
It could have.
So perhaps that's why the fear was there. Maybe the fear was there to keep you from going off the
Becoming
rails.
famous.
And going off the rails. I don't know.
It might have been. But yeah, and we just can't get, too overly, worried about what could have been, what might have been. We just gotta say, okay, this is what it is, and keep going in life, and keep trying to figure out, who we are now in this moment.
Right.
So I'm in my 30s now, and now I'm like trying to figure out my identity in a different way. And I'd laid down, singing for many years now, and we talked about that in the last podcast, and I just don't find my identity with that anymore right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to foster new things in my life, better things that aren't drugs or alcohol, just to shape and figure out my new identity,
Right.
which is, I do that spiritually with the Lord. Like, who am I? What kind of person do I want to be? And what kind of qualities does that person have?
Right.
So I want to be loving first and foremost. And these are all things that I'm going to list, or these are all biblical things. These are all like Christ-like characteristics,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also just, even apart from spirituality, they're just good characteristics to have.
Right.
In general, as a good human being.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I want to be loving towards, other people. I want to be forgiving towards other people. I want to be a giver. I want to be an encourager. I want to be, just a good person.
Right. And along those lines of like thinking about, okay, this is the kind of person I want to be, is also thinking about, okay, if I were this person, what kind of things would I be doing on a daily basis? Because then when you can dream what those things might be, and then you start implementing those things into your daily life, then the next thing you know, you become that person, because you are acting out the life of that person.
Mm-hmm. That's so true, Anne. That's so true. And, I've been trying to act out those types of things. Not just say, this is what I want to be, but actually back it up with the action.
Right.
Of doing that and going and loving on people. And, I posted a video last week about, I was giving, a few dollars out to the homeless people that I seen in Statesville, and how I just had this encounter with this guy that just totally not just wrecked him, but wrecked me, and was able just to speak into his life and tell him, how much value he had.
Mm-hmm.
And that his life was worth living and worth fighting for. And, just doing those little things to back up those characteristics and those qualities that you want to have as a person. Like, like you said, you gotta put action behind it.
Right. And also, sort of like what you're talking about is basically you are deciding what your identity, you want your identity to be, and you are creating it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you are like making it happen. So in other words, we have the power to create our own identity. If the identity you feel that you currently have is not pleasing to you, or bringing you down,
self-destructive.
yeah, then come up with a new one. Come up with a positive one that makes you want to be alive and just excites you about life, and go for it.
Right. Because I think, that's what you were saying, like, we feed into that negative, identity qualities. Like, it can be so destructive. It can just make us hate ourselves, hate who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And, then we end up doing things to back it up. Like, see, I am this type of person. I am no good. I am this. I am that. And we have the power to change that course.
Right.
And change, say, no, you know what, today I may have done those things, been that type of person, but today I'm choosing to be someone different.
Right.
And taking the steps, that new person would take.
Right, exactly. And every day we have the chance to start over and become someone new or better.
So I think, the bottom line is the world tries to tell us who we are. Our family dynamic tries to shape who we are. Our choices that we've made in life or things that we've been through tries to shape our identity and who we are. But the fact of the reality is that we get to choose our identity, and we get to choose who we become. So anyways, I just wanted to thank y'all for listening in, and I hope you enjoyed this topic on identity, and we will see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.